For our spouses, we travel while they're asleep.
That is true. Those miles don't count.
That's right. All right, 14 minutes before the top of the hour. Our nation's law enforcement agencies are not only being hit with layoffs, cutbacks, and furloughs. Now, you probably haven't heard about this, they're also facing a recruiting crisis. In 2006, about 80% of agencies had positions they could not fill, and by 2020, most cops will be millennials, the young people.
But one problem with that, our next guest says, is that the millennials aren't taking the jobs. Joining us to explain, former D.C. detective and Fox News contributor Rod Wheeler. Good morning, Rod.
Good morning, guys.
So the millennials are not accepting these positions? They don't want them? Are they not available to them? What's the real issue?
Well, the real issue here is that we haven't, on the police departments, we haven't prepared these new millennials for leadership positions on the police department. That's one issue. The other issue is that a lot of these new recruits are staying on the job maybe 5 or 6 years, and then they use that as a career stepping stone and go on to something else. So we've kind of created somewhat of a vacuum for ourselves on the police department, but this is something that a lot of police chiefs are grappling with these days because they realize that there's a huge hole that they're going to have to fill within the next 5 to 10 years.
Sure. It makes it sound like the younger guys and gals who get into the forces, they're doing it as a stepping stone. I work here 3, 4, 5, 6 years. I get some experience. Then I go to a federal job where they're going to pay me a lot more. The problem is it's going to be hard to recruit and it's hard to retain. And ultimately, are we going to be safe?
Well, that's an excellent question. I think we will be safe. And let me tell you why real quick, Steve, because I think police chiefs, even here in the District of Columbia, Chief Lanier, they've recognized this. Last year, there was a very interesting article published in the Police Chief magazine where they talked about some of the strategies that a lot of departments are starting to use, such as succession planning. You know, historically, police departments never really did succession planning because younger officers would aspire to leadership roles. But now that's changed a lot. The other issue that we have when you talk about being safe is that these new officers really, you know, they come from an era where there's a lot of technology, and you know what they lack? They lack face-to-face skills that we had 20 years ago where you have to deal with somebody on the street. So again, there's programs being developed to try to, you know, enhance their skills.
Sure, and perhaps, you know, I think those technological skills are great too, and I think the millennials do offer a bunch of benefit in terms of maybe teaching those who have been around for a while all of those skills, but also, isn't there instinct here? Isn't there some sort of like gut instinct that can be passed down, a mentorship program, those that have been there a while to the millennials?
Yes, there is. As a matter of fact, like I said, there's a lot of programs now in place to try to do that because, you know, you take a millennial right now and they can text 250 words a minute, but where they lack is, you know, having that one-on-one discussion with someone. So there are a lot of problems, or a lot of programs, I should say, in place to try to correct that. The other thing is there has to be better relationships between the police department and the colleges and universities, because here's what we find. If we start teaching these young folks earlier these social skills, coupled with the technology, then we get a better officer at the end of the day so that we won't be have to worry about not being safe down the road.
Now, that is a man with a plan. If only it will work out that way. Rod Wheeler, we thank you very much for joining us on this holiday Monday. Thank you.
Thank you. Good morning. Thank you, guys.
All right. Good morning to you. All right.